Hey guys, it's Alex from 7th Hour Films, and today I'm doing something a bit different. Kind of. Still doing a review, obviously, as you saw by the title, but I'm not reviewing a movie or a season of a TV show or anything like that. I'm reviewing a manga today. I'm reviewing the Yu-Gi-Oh! R manga. It's a Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga. I've previously talked about The Dark Side of Dimensions, which was actually a sequel to the manga, and God, when did I start getting the Yu-Gi-Oh! R manga? It was 1 or 2 years ago when I actually started, but I just recently finished, so I'm actually just going to review it to you. So yeah, just quickly going over the story. It takes place right after Battle City in terms of the manga. Because this does obviously follow the manga, the regular Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga. So it takes place like right after Battle City. Basically, a protege of Maximilian Pegasus named Yakko Tenma wants to get revenge on Yugi for killing Pegasus. And which is it's different from the show. Pegasus survives in the show, whereas in the manga he doesn't. Probably not going to talk too much about differences between the show and the manga, because this is obviously its own thing. This was not adapted into the show. But basically, Yakko takes over... He actually takes over the Kaiba Corp building and kidnaps Taya. Anzu, actually, in the manga. I might say, if I say like, because I'm so used to the anime, so I might say Joey, Taya, and Tristan, as opposed to Jonochi, Anzu, and Hondo. Or Honda. One of the two. I don't know. So yeah, if I flip back and forth between those, then just kind of bear with me. So yeah. I'm gonna take a drink. So Yakko Tenma takes over, kidnaps Taya, so that like he can offer like her body to be like transformed into Pegasus, I guess. I was not entirely sure about that plot point, but so yeah, so Yugi, Tristan, and Joey go to Kaiba Corp to try to save Taya and stop Yakko. And basically, the whole thing is that they keep going up the levels of the Kaiba Corp building, and on all the levels are these card professors that they have to get through in order to get to the top, where Yakko Tenma is, and this is what stretches across the 5 volumes. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how long this review is actually going to be. Probably not terribly long, but it's interesting because I'm pretty sure it's different from the other manga. Like, if I'm just going... Because I haven't read the manga, and I'd like to get into that. But at least... Because I know about Duelist Kingdom and Battle City just from watching the shows, and they're pretty similar. And there's a lot more... They move around a lot more in those arcs. They're not just sitting in one place... Or they're not in, like, one building. Granted, Duelist Kingdom is on the same island, but it's a big island. You go to different parts of the island, and eventually you go to Pegasus Castle. And Battle City is kind of the same ways. You go all across Battle City, go to the Blimp for the semifinals, and Kaiba Corp Island for the finals. The finals. Anyway. But yeah, and basically the 5 volumes for Yu-Gi-Oh! R just take place in Kaiba Corp Tower. So it's interesting that they would do that, and it basically is just that they're just going through Kaiba Tower, just fighting, just dueling all these card professors. And the duels are interesting, and is like every once in a while you'll get a new thing plot related, I guess. Like you'll get some new information. Like occasionally, like Yako Tenma will come down and kind of he'll duel Yugi. Although there's a bit of a twist on that, but if you're not going to spoil it if you haven't read the manga. But yeah, the duels are really interesting. I find it interesting with the dual discs because it's different from in the anime. Because in the anime, the dual discs have 5 monster card zones and 5 spell and trap card zones. But in the manga, there's just 5 zones on the blade itself, and you just use that for both monsters and spell and trap cards, which is interesting. It kind of adds it. Yeah, it almost adds a level of like more strategy because you only have 5 spaces instead of 10 to work with. But they don't really go into that because not many characters have to put more than 5 cards down on the field at a time. So, all the card professors are interesting. It's good that pretty much each card professor has their own personality and stuff. They weren't just, boring henchmen. Like there's this like elderly lady. She's pretty cool. There's this young girl that Joey has to duel, who doesn't really know how to play duel monsters. She just is kind of there. And so while she's trying to win, Joey's also like teaching her and encouraging her to get better and stuff, and she's kind of shy. And so that's kind of interesting. It's like that could have easily been a throwaway character, but they decided to make each of these card professors their own character, basically. And it's also interesting with the duels themselves, like, and I don't know if this might be a weird complaint, and this isn't really a complaint at all. This is just an observation. When Yugi duels Yako Tenma, because technically he has 3 duels with Yako Tenma throughout the manga, and each of those times, I believe Yako brings out a different evil god card to fight Yugi's. It's interesting that the 2 of them, because I guess, spoiler alert, kind of, sort of, but you know that they get to a final battle. Yugi and Yako have one last duel. That's the finale. But in their duel, they don't use all of their god cards, which is interesting. Because pretty much in any other, like, if this was the anime, they would both use all 3 of their god cards. Yako would use the Wicked Avatar, the Wicked Eraser, and the Wicked Dreadroot. I think the only one he didn't use was the Wicked Dreadroot, but still, that's not using all 3 of them, that's only using 2 of them. Yugi only used Obelisk the Tormentor in that last duel, although they call it the god of the obelisk or something. It's weird. There goes the clock. It's about 1:30 in the afternoon. You don't care. But yeah, it's interesting. He doesn't use Slifer and he doesn't use Ra. But I believe he uses Slifer in their first duel. I don't know about the second one. And the second one he might use Ra. I don't exactly remember. Yeah, I don't remember. It's been a little while since I read the volume with that particular duel in it. So maybe he did use Ra. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he just never used Ra throughout this manga. That would be interesting, but I don't know. But yeah, so that's just a little thing to kind of point out there. It's interesting what they do with the God cards. Not really what they do with the God cards, but like how, I guess the god cards are used, especially in the last battle when it's really just Obelisk. But it's interesting what they do in the duels. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to say. I guess kind of talking about Yakko Tenma as a villain, I didn't really care for him as a villain. He's not bad or anything, but he's not great. Because I don't really like it when there's this whole thing of like, oh, Yugi, he's clearly evil because he did this one thing, and meh, and stuff. Like, and in this case, it works a little bit better than I can't even think of another example. But in this manga, it works better because yes, technically Yugi did kill Pegasus, their master, basically. You know, the man that kind of raised them and like took them off of the streets. So I mean, there is that, but I don't know. I guess after 5 volumes, it gets a little boring, but because that's the thing is Yakko's whole plan is to just bring back Pegasus. That's it. That's his entire plan, and it pretty much is bring back Pegasus, ruin Yugi. Kaiba gets involved somehow because they need Kaiba's technology to bring back Pegasus. So, which is why they're in Kaiba Corp Tower. And so, yeah, I don't know, it's not the greatest motivation, at least not to last this long. Okay, in Battle City with Merrick, at least in the anime, again, because I haven't read the manga. But in the anime with Merrick's whole point is that he wanted to take over the world, you know, gain the Pharaoh's power and take over the world. And it worked, because it's simple enough to where now he can just do evil things. Maybe that's it, is that Merrick did more. Yakko didn't do that much in here. It's like, all he really did was kidnap Taya, whatever. He kidnapped Taya, took over Kaiba Corp Tower, and wants to destroy Yugi. But that duel doesn't happen until until the 5th volume. So, I don't know. It's not the greatest motivation, and he doesn't really do much. Like, with Merrick is pretty much through the entire tournament, the entire Battle City tournament, because he's in the tournament for the most part. And I guess you could say with Pegasus was only in the last part of the tournament, which is kind of what Yakko is doing, even though it's not a tournament. Yakko is pretty much is saving himself for the final duel, like Pegasus did. I don't know. I still feel like there was more with Pegasus. Pegasus did more. I don't think we saw much of Yakko when he wasn't doing any, like when he was just like, you know, between things, like between duels or, just stuff like that. So, I mean, all in all, he was an okay villain and he worked. He's just not the greatest villain that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has had. So yeah, I don't think there's a lot else to talk about. Overall thoughts, it was good. And it does definitely get me interested in the regular Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga from Season 0 to Duelist Kingdom, Battle City, and the Millennium World. Those 4 arcs in the manga. I am curious as to what those are like. Especially with reading this and how it's different from the anime and watching Dark Side of Dimensions too. So, that is pretty much it. End cards have popped up right about now, and you know what to do with those. And yeah, that is basically it. I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.